Welcome to Garden Delights. I'm Susan Howington, Family Consumer Science Agent with the Henry County Cooperative Extension, partnership with the University of Georgia. We have a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about okra. You're going to hear from Frank Hancock, our Agriculture and Natural Resource Agent. He's going to talk more about that okra. So when we come back, we're going to talk about okra and how to make okra corn Creole. See you back in just a little bit. We're talking about okra today. We're going to be making a great recipe. It's called okra and corn Creole. I hope you're going to like it. Of course, you'll hear from Frank about more about okra, but let's talk about okra. It's one of my favorite vegetables out there. I can't wait when I put it in the garden for it to be ready because it is something that I really, truly love, and it's so versatile on how you can cook it. But let's talk about what's so good about okra. Okra is such a good vegetable for us to consider to put into our diet. It is great source of vitamin A and vitamin C, but mostly in vitamin C. It is wonderful in our fiber, and we don't get enough fiber, so this okra can give us that fiber that we need for our diet. It also gives us a little bit of iron and calcium in our diet, but the good thing is it's no cholesterol and it's fat-free, and that's what we're always looking for in our vegetables and things that we can eat to keep that calories down in our diets. So those are just some good things that this is good for as far as our okra. But it is, when I talk about low in calories, it's only 7 pods, about 7 of these pods is 25 calories. So I could eat this whole bowl of okra and my calories would be very low, and we know it's cholesterol and saturated fat-free also. Just remember, about 7 pods is 25 calories. Now, when you're selecting your okra, this actually came out of my garden, so I'm excited because this was some okra that I just picked actually this morning. And okra, if you don't watch it, it grows so fast that you really have to keep an eye on it. Now, when you buy it at the grocery store, it's a done deal. You can pick out what you like. But when you're growing your okra, once it's getting ready, you really have to pay attention to looking at it, seeing when you need to cut it off, because it'll grow so fast that it'll get too tough for you. So you want to look for okra that's about, keep it in the 4-inch range. That's what you want to look for in small pods. If it becomes even larger, it can get really tough and stringy, and you don't want that because you've waited so long for that okra. So you want to keep it as small as you can. And this is a perfect size if you're looking for okra to start picking out of your garden. So don't let it go overboard, because if we get any rain, it'll grow really fast, and then you won't have time to get it out, and it will get stringy, and it's also tough to eat, and then you can't eat it. But you could save your seeds if you wanted to. Also, you want to look for bright green, because that's what you're looking for in your okra when you buy it in the grocery store. So make sure it looks like it's been picked, it looks fresh when you're buying it there also. Now, storage, once you pick your okra, it'll stay in your refrigerator for about 3 days. So in 3 days, you need to make up your mind on what you want to do as far as that okra. Do you want to go ahead and prepare it and eat it now, or are you going to savor it and wait to the winter and do it as far as you could can it for pickled okra, or you can freeze it and make fried okra later in the winter time, or you can take it and make, like we're going to do today, we're going to use it for Creole. So really, that's what's so good about it. But what I also like about okra is you can cook it out or broil it in your stove or grill it on your grill, and it turns out really good. And the reason why I wanted to share this with you is because okra has a substance, and it is called mucilage. And what happens is it helps it retain the water, so when you're cooking, it kind of sometimes makes it come slimy, and that's what people don't like about okra. If you boil okra and you don't like it, it's because most people don't like it because it becomes real slimy. But that is the part. But the good thing about the mucilage is it will help it when you're making Creole or a soup, because it makes it get thicker in that soup or Creole, which really helps because it keeps it combined together. So those are some good things about okra and how it does it. Now, preparing it, you do have to wash it. So these have been washed. So you always have to wash your okra. And then we're going to slicing this or cutting it. Some people in some recipes will cut it down the center, and they'll use it straight down the center. But today for our recipe, then we use it, it's going to be cut into slices, so we'll do that when we do our recipe. Just to kind of give you some tidbits about the okra, but the good thing is it is so nutritious for us, so we want to make sure we have this in our diet pretty regularly because it's going to provide us with some great nutrients, and it's great in fiber, and it's also going to give us that great vitamin A and C that we also need. Also, it's a seasonal, okra is seasonal, so the peak of seasonal okra is between, you're going to plant it and you're going to get it between May and October. So we still have a little bit of ways to go before our okra is going to be gone, and it depends on how the weather is in October. It may even go further than October. When we come back, we're going to talk more about that corn and the okra, and we're going to make the corn and Creo with the okra, and hopefully you're going to like it. It's very easy. It's a little easy steps to it, and we'll see you back in just a little bit.
Okay, today we're going to talk about okra. And I got to tell you, I'm not allergic to very many things. I can walk through poison oak and poison ivy and it doesn't bother me. But when I get in the okra patch, it makes me itch. So if you're going to work in the okra, I'm recommending the long sleeve shirt and the gloves just to keep it off of you. It's nothing serious, but you'll be more comfortable if you protect yourself from the little spines and things that are on the okra. Okra is in the mallow family. It is akin to cotton and hibiscus. And as you can see, the flowers on the okra are very pretty. They're, and so it makes a nice addition to the garden to have the pretty flowers. These flowers are self-pollinating. They bloom one day and then they start forming a pod. That pod will be ready to pick in about 4 days after it blooms. So when you're growing okra, you need to stay after it, because what you would like to have are these pods that are 4 to 6 inches long that are tender. But once they get big, they get tough and they're not near as good as they are when they're young and tender. So in an okra patch like the one we're in right here, you're going to be picking this about every other day. You're going to be walking through here harvesting okra. Okra is generally grown from seed. You can get transplants. The problem with okra transplants is they are real tender. They're hard to not damage when you're transplanting them. So if you're going to do transplants, you need to pay close attention to how you handle them. But most of it is grown from seed. It's a tropical plant. It needs the soil to be 60 plus degrees. It likes well-drained soil, pH of 6 to 7, somewhere in that range. It's tolerant of a lot of different soils. It grows in a lot of different places, but it is a tropical plant, so it likes warm weather. If you plant it too early, you can get damping off disease, where it's just the soil is too cold and too moist, and the plants don't do well. So you're going to be planting okra late April, 1st of May, when the soil warms up. So that's as you can see, okra can get fairly tall. So you're just deal with that. You have to be careful not to put too much nitrogen fertilizer on it. We put like a pound of 10, 10, 10 per 100 feet of row space before we plant it. Then we come back once it starts maturing. We can side dress it with another pound of 10, 10, 10 per 100 square feet. But don't go too heavy on it. During the season, every 4 to 5 weeks, no sooner than once a month would you try to add any fertilizer to it, because if you get too much nitrogen, you'll see here behind me, there's some plants back there that are 8 feet tall. They can't hardly harvest those. So that becomes a problem when the okra gets too tall. You're probably better off to plant 2 batches of okra, so if it does get too tall and you get tired of dealing with the height of it, you're better off to have another batch coming along maybe 3 or 4 weeks behind it that you just start harvesting that. You can cut it back and shorten it up, but when you do, it starts to grow like a bush and it gets hard to deal with, hard to work through. And you also lose 3 or 4 weeks of production when you cut it back before it starts producing again. So if you need to cut it back, you can, but like I say, you'll lose some production. You have to keep harvesting okra. If the pods get too mature, if you let them get too big, you need to cut those off and just get rid of them. But if you leave them on the plant will sort of stop producing. It won't produce near as much if it's carrying some mature pods. So everything comes off when you're harvesting it. We'll plant our seed about 1 inch deep, about 12 inches apart, rows 36 to 48 inches wide. Some folks like to just plant them fairly close together and then come back after it comes up and thin them out so that they get that foot separation between the plants. A lot of folks will soak the seed. Okra seed is very hard, and it's so it can use a little soaking. Sometimes they'll try to scarify it. That's a little hard to do to okra seed. So mostly they'll soak it in water for 24 hours before they plant it. And then it needs to be planted in warm soil, and your germination ought to be pretty good when you do that. Okra can have, there's several diseases that okra can get, blights, and sometimes nematodes will bother it, fusarium, wilt, and some of those kind of things can affect it. Generally, it is a pretty healthy plant. A little crop rotation won't hurt anything. Don't plant it in the same place every year to try to control some of those diseases. Insects, there's also some insects that'll bother it. Leaf-footed bugs, stink bugs. This pod that I'm looking at right here that's curled over, a lot of people ask what causes that, and most likely that's stink bug damage where they've penetrated that side of the plant. That side of the plant has quit growing, and the other side keeps on growing, and that's what causes it to curl over like that. Okay, now here's one that's been missed for a little while, and it's too tough. It's not going to be good to eat. One way you can tell, you can just kind of cut into it. It's not tender, and so when you get one that got away from you, you still need to take it off, but you don't need to keep it. Okay, I think we're ready to go see what Susan's fixing in the kitchen.
We're talking about okra today, and we're going to be making okra and corn Creole, and I hope you're going to like it. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's in the recipe, just so you know, because I have some things already pre-prepared, and I want to make sure you know this. This recipe is going to tell you just some kind of a spicy smoked sausage, but I love this Kaneka sausage, and you could use andouille sausage. Really, it's up to you, but I do like Kaneka sausage. It's a little bit spicy sausage. It cooks up really well. So this is about 1/4 of a pound of the cooked sausage. And then I also have fresh tomatoes, and this is going to be about 2 cups of your fresh tomatoes. We also have onions, which is a cup of onions. We have 1 teaspoon of garlic. And then we also have some Creole, because I talked about it being a Creole. So we do have a little bit of Creole, and I've mixed a little bit of the pepper with the Creole just so you could see. So the Creole is going to be 1 teaspoon of Creole and 1/4 of a teaspoon of the pepper. So those are already together in this little container. And then you're going to have 2 ears of corn also, and I'm using fresh corn. You could use frozen corn. You could also use your frozen okra, but I chose as much as I could for this season to use fresh, everything that I could find fresh. So what I want to do first is I'm going to go ahead and cut the corn up, and what I want to do is use my bowl as my starting point, and I'm going to cut this the corn off the ear, And I love fresh corn, so I'm going to go ahead and do that because that's going to be my stabilizer to make sure I knock all those kernels off into the bowl. So I'm going to cut all this off. And you could use canned corn, or you could use frozen corn, but you know, you can't always wait till the in season when you want a Creo. But if you're in the mood for a Creo and corn is in season, it's a perfect time to use your corn as far as cutting it off your corn off. So just know that it's easy to do, because about 2 ears is what you're going to need, because that's going to make it enough to get what you need for this recipe. So just remember, you need about a cup of corn, and about 2 ears is going to give you that cup. So I'm almost done cutting this off, and then I'm going to move into the okra and cut it up for you guys. Let's see, one more little piece of it. And you can see that's about a cup. And I'm going to put the cobs right there. I'm going to wipe my hands up a little bit. And then I'm going to start cutting up on the okra. I'm going to set this aside. And for the recipe, you're going to need about 2 cups. And this is fresh okra. And like I said, you could do the frozen if you really wanted to. And I'm just going to take the tops off of the okra. And I'm going to cut it up, and I'm going to try to keep it so I can show you about how many pods of okra you would need to do 2 cups. So, and I usually don't take the tips too much because I like it just to look like the sliced part. So I'm going to set those aside. Now, if you're doing fried okra and you want that part of it, please put that in with it if you want to. So as you can see, this is already going to add up. And I can already see that little slimy part that people don't like, but once you start cooking it, it's even better as far as that goes. When okra gets too large, you can tell when you start putting your knife into it, it's hard to cut through, and you'll know that too automatically, and you'll probably just say, well, that's too tough, and you'll have to set it aside. But okra is too hard to come by the way I look at it, so I'm always looking to make sure I get it as soon as I can so that I have it ready to be able to use it. And I will take it and freeze my okra a lot to make fried okra, because I do like fried okra in the wintertime. So keep that in mind when you're deciding what you want to do. I know a lot of people like to make pickled okra, and it's really good also. So if you're into canning, that's a great way to prolong that okra and make it where you can eat it later. We have a person that comes to our office pretty regularly, and a lot of times he does pickle okra, and he'll bring us some, and it's really good. And then you can make other things too using your okra too. You don't just have to have just pickle okra. You can do other things too that you can use to make your okra go longer into the winter months. So just to give you an idea, I did count this okra, and it is about 25 to 30 pods is going to give you the 2 cups. But just remember, all the pods are going to be different sizes. So you're going to have to think about that, because you may be able to add your 2 cups pretty fast as far as that goes. So just keep that in mind when you're cutting it up. And it doesn't take long for it to fill into this. So I'm going to cut some more up. And this is a little over 25 because I wanted to make sure I had enough washed up so I'd have enough to cut the 2 cups up. So I'm just barely cutting the tips off. And I don't like it too large on the slice size, so it just depends on what you're doing your okra for. You know, you may want just a little bit bigger than the slices if you're doing okra, the fried okra, but it does take it longer. The larger you get, it takes it longer for you to cook also. So just keep that in mind too. So we're almost there. Need to break that up just a little bit more of getting our 2 cups. We'll take just a little bit more. See what we can get. And just think about all the good fiber that the okra is going to give you while you're eating it too. But I will tell you that one of our favorite ways to eat at our house is on the grill. And what I do is I take a little bit of a spray, and I spray the okra just to coat it. You could use olive oil or something like that too if you wanted to. And then I do a little bit of season on it. And once I season it, I put it on the grill. And I know if you have cooked okra before, what I like about okra is when you start cooking, as soon as it heats, the heat hits it, it starts turning this beautiful green color to me. And it's such a pretty color. And you know it's starting to get ready. Same way with the grill. When you're cooking on the grill, it will start turning this beautiful green color. And you'll know that you need to flip it once it starts turning that green, bright green color, because that tells you it's cooking. And then you want to flip it to another side, and by the time you do that, we'll do 2 more. By the time you do that, the okra is almost ready, and it makes it very crunchy, and you can take it and pretty much eat the whole pod. The good thing about it is you're not frying it, so you're eating very healthy with that okra. So that's the good thing about eating the okra. So that's about our 2 cups that we need for the okra. So we're going to add, leave my stems right there. We're going to add this 2 cups of okra to our corn of 2 ears of corn. And I am going to add the other ingredients, because that's the good thing about this. Once you do it, you can mix it all together. I do want to tell you this, that I've already browned the sausage ahead of time, so it's already cooked. So I'm going to go ahead and add it also to the ingredients. And then I'm going to add the fresh tomatoes, which is going to be so good because they're fresh. That's 2 cups of tomatoes. Let's see if I can stack some of this to the side. And then we have that cup of onions, chopped onions. And notice this is going together pretty simple. And I love garlic, so we're going to add that little garlic to it, which is 1 teaspoon of the garlic. And then I'm going to add the season. I'm going to kind of sprinkle it on top because I really want to make sure that it incorporates all through there. And this is a Creole season. And there's different brands out there that you might like to try. And you may have your favorite that you're going to try. And what I'm going to do now is just kind of mix this up together because I want to make sure that season gets all through that okra, on the tomatoes, the corn. If we get that all mixed in together, then it gives a great taste. Now, I talked about the okra releasing that slimy part when it hits the so it's really important that we add water to this because this is going to help the Creole, because you can see that it releases that slimy part of it, and we're going to add that water, which is the 1/2 cup of water to finish this ingredients out for the recipe, because it's going to need it. Now you know that you've got a little bit of water in your tomatoes, so you know that once this hits the heat, you're going to have all this heated up, and it's going to get a little bit more liquid than what you see right here. But this is all you need to fix this up. Now, one thing it's going to say on the recipe that you could add this to rice, but we're going to choose not today. We're just going to have a Creole in a bowl, but if it gets to the winter time and you want to add something else to make it your whole meal, add some rice to it and it'll be great. So what we're going to do is I'm going to reach down here and grab my Dutch oven. And this is what we're going to use to cook the Creole in. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in the Dutch oven. Now once it's in the Dutch oven, you're going to start it off at medium heat for about 5 minutes because you want to get it to where it's kind of bubbling. So once you see it kind of bubbling in the Dutch oven, you're going to cut it down and simmer it for about another 15 minutes. That is the 15 minutes if you think your vegetables are tender like you want them to be. So it may go a little bit longer just depending on. Now the recipe will also say it serves about 4 people. So just to let you know how much this is filling up this casserole dish. So you're going to do this for 5 minutes, another 15 minutes. on simmering, and then once you do that, the 15 minutes, you do need to put the lid on. The first 5 minutes, no lid, the next 15 minutes with the lid. And you're going to cook this until everything is tender in the way you like it. And you'll see the water release as it comes through the tomatoes also to help it. And then once it's done, you're ready to eat. So when we come back, we'll have Frank come back and taste our Creole, and hopefully he's going to like it as much as we do. We'll see you back in just a little bit. Welcome back to Garden Delights. We have Frank with us, and we're going to taste that okra Creole with that little extra corn that's fresh in it.
Now, before you get started, I've been doing a little research on okra on the internet. I studied on it. It's not what you think.
What's that?
The first thing that came up was the Oklahoma Rocket Association. And, you know, so it's got to be true. The Oklahoma Rocket Association's mascot is the okra.
Is the okra.
You can see that right there.
That is too funny.
So okra's moving up in the world. Then the next thing that came up was the Delta State University mascot from Cleveland, Mississippi. You know where Cleveland, Mississippi is?
I do.
The Fighting Okra.
That is too cool.
Fear the okra. So all this time that I've been talking about it, I didn't know how famous it actually was. So, I mean, go ahead, I didn't want to interrupt you.
It's famous, but not only that, but maybe they're trying to tell us also we need to eat more okra because it's healthier for us
That's what
too.
I found out on the internet.
Okay.
Anyway, so.
That sounds great. That sounds great. Well, let's taste it and see what you think.
All right.
So it's been cooking, and so you can see the okra has got a different color to it. It's been cooking, and so it's gone through the process. And Frank, everything in here is just about fresh except for like our meat and everything, so I hope you're gonna like it. Give you a little bit more.
More is always better.
All right.
Okay.
See what you think. Now put some Creole season in there. If you think it's too spicy, you know, you could always leave that part out.
That's good.
Is it good?
It is good, real good.
The fresh corn really makes a difference to me.
Mm-hmm. We talked about corn another time.
That is good, Frank.
You know, you can fry it, you can pickle it,
That's right.
you can boil it, and amazingly enough, it always tastes like okra.
It does. I can taste that spice to it. It's really good. You can, you know, eliminate your spice, but I love it. I could even add a little bit more spice to it. I hope that you'll try this recipe. It's a really easy but tasty recipe as far as the okra and corn Creole. If you're thinking about it, please check out our website. The recipe will be there for you. We'll see you back next time on Garden Delights.